All right, so today we're going to be taking a look at semicolons and how to use them correctly. Semicolons are perhaps the most misunderstood punctuation mark. The semicolon can help add variety and clarity to your sentence structures. Why use a semicolon? Semicolons have basically three purposes to them. One, to link two complete sentences together. Two, to show a relationship between two complete sentences. And three, to mark a series with internal commas. Semicolons are rarely a requirement in writing. However, they can be helpful for a few reasons. I sometimes joke with my students that they might be able to get through their whole entire lives without ever having to use a semicolon. That being said, if you can master the semicolon, it can add a lot of flavor and variety to your writing. These are the reasons why. One, you can clarify sentences with internal punctuation by using a semicolon. Two, you can show relationships between ideas by using a semicolon. And three, you can provide a mix of sentence structure by using a semicolon. Rules for using semicolons. When you connect complete sentences with a semicolon, you need to make sure that both of the elements you are combining together are complete sentences, not fragments. Okay? Complete sentences only. You have a complete sentence, then a semicolon, then another complete sentence. That is the appropriate way to combine elements by using a semicolon. A complete sentence, to refresh your memory, also called an independent clause, must have a subject, a verb, and make sense. Relationship. Both sentences connected by a semicolon should have a relationship to each other. In the example to the right, Bob and he refer to the same person. Therefore, there is a clear connection between both sentences. So here's our example. Bob went to the mall for lunch. He ate at Ruby Tuesday. Bob went to the mall for lunch, semicolon, he ate at Ruby Tuesday. Now, what have we accomplished by combining these sentences with a semicolon? Well, we've shown that they go together, that the statements being made in each sentence both help form one solid, coherent idea. If the two sentences were about different topics, it would be highly inappropriate to connect them with a semicolon. Transitions. Use a semicolon in front of transitional elements and a comma after them when connecting two complete sentences. Conjunctive adverbs such as however, moreover, and therefore are transitional elements. Phrases such as in addition and in fact are also transitional elements. What does that mean, that these are transitional elements? Well, it means that they help give us a transition from one idea to the next. They help us understand why the idea being put forth in a particular sentence comes after the one that came before it. Why is that? Okay? So here's an example. Bob was hungry, therefore he went to Ruby Tuesday for lunch. Notice how there is a comma after therefore. Okay? He found the new menu interesting. In fact, he plans to eat there again tomorrow. If we took these apart and made them four separate sentences, it would look a bit like this. Bob was hungry, period. Therefore, comma, he went to Ruby Tuesday for lunch. He found the new menu interesting, period. In fact, comma, he plans to eat there again tomorrow. Notice how either way, whether we're using the periods or the semicolons, therefore and in fact have to have the commas after them. So really, this rule applies across the board. The only thing that's being changed is using semicolons instead of periods. Internal commas. You can also use semicolons to help clarify long sentences with internal punctuation such as commas. In the example to the right, semicolons mark the items in a series that start after the word because. Bob normally hates going to the mall. However, he has found Ruby Tuesday to be worth the trip because of its enticing, inexpensive, and varied menu, its easy and accessible location, and its fun atmosphere, pleasurable surroundings, and uplifting decor. Basically, what we have going on here is a very long list that has sub-lists within it. So the semicolons are being used to help clarify that. Let's take a closer look. The first part of this extensive list is its enticing, inexpensive, and varied menu. That really is a list of its own. So we want to clarify that by having a semicolon right after it. Then we go into a second sublist, its easy and accessible location. And then once that sublist is completed, we want to clarify by having another semicolon. And then we're into our final sublist and its fun atmosphere, pleasurable surroundings, and uplifting decor. What would happen if we didn't use these semicolons? Well, the sentence would become very hard to read, and it would also be harder to understand how the list is even working. Certain items in it would become blended with items that are not really a part of the same set, not really a part of the same sublist. Semicolon reminders. Let's recap by going over the do's and don'ts of semicolon use. Do use between complete sentences. Make sure both sentences have a relationship. If they don't relate to each other in some way, why are you trying to link them together? Do not use a semicolon instead of a colon or a comma. The uses for a colon and a comma are very different than the uses for a semicolon. They are not interchangeable. And finally, do not overuse them. If I ever see a student paper that has more than one semicolon for every 1.5 pages, I have to pause and ask myself if these semicolons are all really necessary. And that is something that you'll want to ask yourselves too when you're proofreading your papers.